Mr. Bill Imada has really opened a lot of doors for us and really gotten our university out there, so it's been a pleasure.
My name is Miles Lepay, and I'm a business and communications major. And I just want to say thank you to Bill Imada for taking the time to come out here and speak with us out of his busy schedule and putting this millennial community together and giving us the visual we need to get in front of executives and make ourselves and market ourselves. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
And I am Ryan Cleve, and I am completing my MBA degree here. And I definitely want to give a shout out to both Justin and Dr. Carpenter. Without them working, getting the team together, getting the room so that we formed a true team to participate in this, I don't think it would happen. Can we get a round of applause for that?
Very nice of them.
Very nice, very nice. Thank you so much.
Well, without further ado, we're going to turn it over to Mr. Bill Imada from the IW Group. And Bill, thank you for coming here tonight.
Thank you. And thank you all for coming out in the evening, because I don't think I would come out for any speaker. I don't care how important they were when I was in college. So thank you all for being here. And I want to say thank you to Dr. Carpenter and Justin and the entire Millennial Community, and of course all of you for being here. I was born in Ontario, Oregon, in the poorest county of Oregon, and I moved when I was a younger kid to LA. And my dad loved Oregon and loved Idaho, and so when he was passing, he told me that he wanted to go back to Oregon. And so he always said, you should always remember where you're from, and you should always come back and give back whatever you can to the people that you leave behind. And so I think that's one of the key messages I want to make sure I leave today, is when you graduate from EOU, don't forget the professors like Professor Curtis, Professor Carpenter, Justin, and all the others, administrators, and the other students that are here. Remember that once you become successful, whatever you decide to do, you have to come back to the university and make sure that you give back. I also want to try to get you to change the conversation about things. So my message last time I was here is very similar. And I wanted to just let you know that you can do some amazing things out of Eastern Oregon University. And I always tell this university when I'm here that the next best idea, the next Google, the next Facebook, the next Lexus is going to come out of a school like EOU, and you have to believe it, because I believe it. And so part of the reason why I'm here is to inspire you to do good things. And even if you decide to stay in Cove, Brittany, and be an amazing teacher, that's okay, but be the best teacher that you could possibly be. But if you decide to move on and you decide to explore the world and do something amazing, make sure you shout about it and come back here and let other people know. So I know there's a development person in the office. I'm happy to make a contribution to the university, but I only want to make a contribution to the university if some of the students and faculty step up and say, I've got an idea. And I had a chance to talk to a student that has an idea with bees. And if she wants to put that idea forward and take it somewhere, bring it on. And I'd be happy to support it and invest in that. But I will only invest in that idea if you create a partnership with the university, a faculty member, and a person from the community. Because we have to build those types of partnerships moving forward if any of us are going to be successful. So real brief background about me, because Justin always wants me to tell people about my background. So anyways, I moved to LA when I was a young kid, and I was telling everyone when I moved from Ontario, and my brothers and sisters were older, we got picked on when we were younger, and I especially got picked on because I was a farm kid. My family grew potatoes. We grew russet potatoes. We delivered most of it to Ore-Ida, and then afterwards we switched to sugar beets, and then we grew onions. We also grew alfalfa, and so growing up in a small town and then moving to LA and having culture shock was really hard for us. And so being a country bumpkin and going to LA and all of a sudden not having any of your friends and family nearby was really traumatic for me as a kid. So I had to be self-sufficient, and so it really made me stronger because I would play by myself because I didn't have any friends. And I swore from that point on, after being picked on for a good 10 to 12 years, that I would not allow that to happen to anybody else that came from a small town anywhere in America. And so part of the reason why I'm here is that I want you to know that you're strong people, and you should never allow anybody to do that to you, because you're going to deliver something good to the world, and I want to see it, and they're going to see it as well. So anyways, fast forward, I went to a university, and they used to call it California State University Northridge, but the nickname for California State University Northridge was California State University Nowhere. And part of the reason for that is because UCLA and the University of Southern California were in our midst. You have Oregon State and the University of Oregon and Portland University and Boise State not too far away. So you understand the shadow that is placed on your university. But that doesn't mean you can't be great. So I just wanted to let you know that after graduating from Cal State Northridge, which it took me a good 8 years because I wanted to work and get out of school, I had an opportunity to get a job before I graduated, and I took it. But I decided to stay at Northridge and continue with my education and finish. Just fast forward. Now, you remember, UCLA and USC are in the midst of Cal State Nowhere. Well, guess what happened a few years later? The mayor of Los Angeles invited me to UCLA, along with a professor from UCLA. They brought me in front of a whole group of alumni, and they said, we're really, really proud to present an award for entrepreneurship to Bill Imada from IW Group, and we're very proud that he is a Bruin. And I had to stop and say, Mayor and the doctor or the professor, I didn't go to UCLA. I went to California State University Northridge. The University of Southern California offered me a job to work as a professor, and I started off as an adjunct professor. I do not have a master's degree or a doctorate, and I taught graduate level crises management. So you can do the same, and I want you to believe that that is possible, because it is. So anyways, after graduating from college, I went into HR, hated it. I thought I was going to love human resources, and I didn't like it at all. So I went to executive search, made a lot of money, then got bored, and decided to start a company, and it failed. And tried to start another one, and that one failed. But the important thing about failure, and you're going to hear this from many, many speakers, is you got to pick yourself up. Because failure can disable you. And if you allow that to happen, that you not only let yourself down, you let other people down as well. So you got to pick yourself, dust yourself up, and try again. And if you fail again, pick yourself up, dust yourself, and try again. And ultimately, I decided to go into advertising and marketing, and I became a consultant for a very large agency that was starting a PR firm. And when I started that agency, and some of you may have heard this story, so if I'm repeating myself to the camera over there, you could delete this section. I got to the agency, and I was the only Asian American in that agency. And there was one other person in that agency, and he happened to be Latino. And he was the only other person of color. And so he worked in the mailroom. So anytime we were entertaining a very important client, the gentleman that worked in the mailroom and I would get a promotion really quickly. So we'd leave our cubicle, and I would get this really amazing office with an absolutely clean desk. My cubicle was right next to the toilet, so I got to see everybody when they were using the facilities. And the gentleman that worked in the mailroom was one of the best people that worked in the mailroom because he kept everything organized. He got the office next to me. So every time the clients would come in, the president of the agency said, I want to introduce you to Bill, and he's way down there. They're busy, so we're not going to bother them. But he's our expert on Asia. And Juan, expert on Latin America. We practice diversity in this agency from the very beginning. And this went on for weeks. I would go back to my cubicle, oh, moving to the new office, must be another guest. And one day, the client says, I want to meet Bill. Oh, no, 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 you can't meet Bill. Bill's busy. No, I want to meet Bill and I want to meet Juan. No, 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 they're busy. No, I'm the client. I want to meet them. So in walks the president and this very prominent client in Glendale, California. You could narrow it down. And the president of this company says, Mr. Imada, I understand you were with the agency for quite some time. I'd only been there for about 7 or 8 months, but yeah, I've been here for a while. And he goes, you know, I understand you're from the Far East, and I want you to know I grew up in the Far East as well. I lived there. I was stationed in Tokyo. I was stationed in Beijing. And so I know a little bit about the Far East. What part of the Far East are you from? I said, Eastern Oregon. Very far Eastern Oregon. Right on the Oregon-Idaho border. And the president of the company went, oh, well, that's very interesting. And the president of the agency was, and so, long story short, that never happened to me again. So, but then I had an opportunity to pitch a piece of business. A large beer company went to the agency and said, we have a project. If you had $500,000, what would you do if you wanted to reach new markets, say Asian Americans in America? And of course, nobody in the agency could do this, and the president of the agency just sat on it for days and days and days and said, oh, wait a minute, I have an Asian American in the company. Why don't we ask Bill? And of course, I know nothing about Asian Americans. And he gave me the project. And I was excited about it because it gave me an opportunity to do something and show what I could do. So I was able to pull a little team together, slept overnight in the agency, worked all night long because a day and a half later we had to fly to St. Louis. And while we finished our presentation, we got on the plane and we realized that we were completely off strategy, completely. So we said, well, we're going to land and we're going to go to FedEx and we're going to make the entire presentation. Flight is delayed. No time. So we took cocktail napkins from the airplane and drew all over them. And we did our entire strategy on cocktail napkins. And when we got to the company, the executive assistant met us at the door and said, where's your presentation? We've got to get it loaded up. The executive vice president's going to be coming in our office any minute. Said, it's in my briefcase. Where is it? It's in my briefcase. In walks the executive vice president. I'm pulling out our napkins. And the executive assistant says, Mr. Imada, what in the world is that? I'm sorry, that's a coffee stain. I spilled coffee on the plane. He goes, no, the napkins. What is that? That's our presentation. He goes, you got to be kidding. The executive vice president's going to be in here any minute. Walks in. What's the commotion? Mr. Imada wants to present on napkins. Well, let him do it. And so we went through an entire campaign about how we would spend the money, and it went what seemed like a good long time, and the executive seemed interested. And afterwards, the executive assistant stands up and said, Mr. Imada, there is no way you're going to be working for this company, and how dare you waste our time. And he walked us to the car and berated us all the way to the car. We got in the car and we were pretty depressed. And a few days later, I get a phone call. Congratulations, you just won our business. And of course, we did our happy dance, went to the president of the agency and told him, and he said, you what? You won? And we said, yes, aren't you happy? And he goes, call him right now and resign. You cannot work on that business. I said, what do you mean we can't work on the business? We have a conflict. I said, why didn't you tell us that beforehand? Where is the conflict? In Europe. We represent another beer company. I was in shock. And I said, why did you send us to St. Louis? And you know what he said? I didn't think you had a chance of winning. But we won. So anyways, I had to call the company up and tell the company we didn't win the business, we can't work on the business. And the executive of this company said to me, Mr. Imada, why don't you start your own company? I said, I beg your pardon? He said, why don't you start your own company? And I said, there's a good reason why I won't do it. I'm $80,000 in debt. I went to college, and I had a lot of loans, and I borrowed from mom and dad, and I racked up all of my credit cards, and I think you could relate, as a student graduating, you got to work. And also, I had a failed business. And he said, your excuse is $80,000, you won't start a small business even if we hire you? And I said, no, I'm sorry, I don't want to do it. So 2 days later, I come to the office and there's a FedEx with an $80,000 check from this very large beer company. And the comment on the check, I think I could say this on camera, get your ass in gear. So the messages that I want to leave with you is if you have an idea and it's inspired, it doesn't matter how you present it. You got to believe in that idea, and you got to fight for that idea. Because if you believe and fight for that idea, you could move a mountain. And that's what you need to do. So anyways, I want to just give you a little bit of information. And that's, by the way, that's how I started my company. And since that time, after working with this company for 11 years, we now represent companies like American Airlines, Lexus, Verizon Wireless. We won the General Motors business as well. We also represent Nissan. We do Wells Fargo. And we do a whole number of other companies. So once you build some confidence and are able to motivate people, you're going to be able to pull people into the conversation. But you've got to change the way you present. And I just want to show you just one example of what we're doing to change the conversation. So when you walk into an intersection, a lot of people don't think about where to go. They're programmed, and so when they walk into the intersection, they don't think about the choices, the challenges, and the opportunities. Every time you walk into an intersection, there's an opportunity. But often we get caught up into our own network, but we don't want to let anybody else into that network. And that's what keeps us behind. We need to use our network wisely. And one thing that Latinos say, which I love, is donde comen cinco, comen seis. If you could feed 5, you could feed 6. So there should always be room at all of your tables for an idea, for a guest, for a visitor. But a lot of people believe that if you want something, you have to steal from somebody else. And we always worry about losing pie. If we have a mentality about stealing and taking pie and that it's limited, we lose. I believe you create a bakery and you make more pie. And that way more people could enjoy the ideas that you have. And when you build and create more pie, you create a pathway for people to find their way. And when they find their way, they're motivated and bump into others, and they share those ideas with each other, and we push and pull one another. And that's where a company like IW Group comes in. But how do we network? Well, we use our network wisely. And one way is using donde comen cinco, comen seis. We bring people together, and we bring people together through our network, and we invite them to the network and include them in the table. And we resolve problems in 70 minutes or less because we know how people's times are valuable. And so what we do is we create a breakfast. We meet in the morning at 7:50. We pull together our network of corporations and governmental agencies, and we say, share a table with us, bring your challenges and your ideas, and let's resolve them. And by doing that, we create new dots, new visibility, new ideas, where we could share and grow those ideas. And what do? It attracted over 100 Fortune 500 companies that are all in these areas. And it allowed me to win companies like This Is Business. So when you do things that help people advance, you advance yourself. And so one of the quotes that I always use is that if you want to help somebody else, if you lift somebody else up, you lift yourself up as well. So if you pull all of these together, you are able to communicate in a really cool and creative way. So my question to all of you is, how can we expand your table and make you more valuable to the people that you're trying to reach? I also want to talk to you a little bit about the Millennial Community. And by the way, I hate PowerPoint and Prezi and Keynote. And if you have to rely on PowerPoint, Prezi, and Keynote to communicate, you're doing yourself a disservice. You should all be good at storytelling because each of you have a story that's unique. And you should bring those stories forward because that's going to change the conversation with an employer, with colleagues, with friends, and with people you just meet. You got to give something of yourself in order to get something back. So I'm going to unfortunately use a little bit of a PowerPoint, but I want to walk you through the millennial community very quickly. Millennials. For the millennials in the audience, people are defining you, and you are allowing people to do that. That's why you have to change the conversation about yourself. And if you look at the messy news that exists about you, this is what you're going to see. Headlines that don't make any sense, that run over the borders. Millennials, you're lazy. Millennials, you don't eat cereal. Millennials, you're a PC disaster. Millennials, you can't buy a home. Millennials, you're never going to make anything of yourself because you have nothing to give, because you only care about yourselves. And you want to conquer the world, but you know nothing about the world. So you are allowing the rest of the world define for you who you are. That's where you have to change the conversation. And I want people to believe that you could do something if you put your mind to it. We created the Millennial Community in less than 5 days. It is less than 2 months old. Less than 2 months old. It was nurtured in December, launched the first week in January, and it is just the beginning of March. It started off with a handful of agencies. Eastern Oregon University is a founding university. It's now 16 universities in 16 states in 6 U.S. time zones. But in order for us to change that conversation, we've got to look at change in a different way. And we've got to focus on what are we going to do to own that conversation. And by owning that conversation, we've got to change the way we look at the world. And most of the time, you're looking for mentors. And that's an important thing. A mentor is critically important. But guess what, millennials? You have something of value to share with others. So one of the key visions of the millennial community is to change the conversation. But one of the key missions is to tell your story and to allow people to be part of your journey and to reverse mentor those who want to know you. And so what did we do? There's dots everywhere. And by the way, I reached out to Eastern Oregon University, to 2 different people, no response. Then I reached out to Dr. Sherry Carpenter, who didn't know me from a hole in the wall, and said, I'd like to know something about Eastern Oregon University. I'd like to visit someday. And I got an immediate response. The reason why I'm here is primarily because of her. And who does she introduce me to? Brittany from Cove. And I got a tour from a great ambassador, so I got to know a little bit about the university. And who else does she introduce me? To Justin from Western Oregon. And I don't know who Justin's going to introduce, so the arrow goes off, but it's very important that you look for the dots, because the dots exist, and if you don't find the dots to connect you to what you want to do and where you want to be, create the dot. Create the dot. And so moving forward, we created a little bit of a triangle together. Sherry and Justin on this side, Brittany and the students on the other side, the executives on this side, and our IW group, we're kind of the guides in the middle, but we try to stay out. We just want to be guides, because part of our responsibility is to help you get where you want to be. And then we looked at the different countries, and we started populating. These are the different universities that are now part of the community, but I chose not necessarily the Ivy Leagues, because I didn't want the Stanfords, the Yales, the Cornells, the Penns, the Berkeleys. I wanted universities that had real people. And one of the places where I could find real people is right here in La Grande, Oregon. And of course, Cal State Northridge, my alma mater, Washington, University of Colorado, Fort Hays, University of Houston downtown, University of Missouri, Kansas City, all the way to Brandeis University. And I think that the community is quite rich. It's 3 to 4 students per campus and faculty. And then we created the Millennial Community. And these are some of the people that we wanted to talk to. And this is one thing that's very important. And I learned this from the executive of the beer company. He was the only high-ranking Latino at the company. And I told this to the class earlier. After working with him for a few years, I said, I need some help. And he said, sure, what can I help? And I said, can I have 20 minutes of your time? Can you tell me a little bit more about other companies I could pitch and get business from? And he goes, sure. Fly to St. Louis, make an appointment with my secretary, and come over and I'll spend some time with you. Flew all the way to St. Louis, showed up at 7:30 in the morning. My appointment was at 8. Got in, met with the executive vice president, and he went through, call Bank of America. Call Prudential Insurance. I've already made these appointments. I said, tell me more about these people. And he was still giving, well, this person's a little dry, but she's going to really understand what you're trying to do. This person's very interested in new markets. So we were having this great conversation, and at 8:20, he says, Mr. Mott, it's time for you to get out. And I said, I beg your pardon? He said, it's time for you to get out of my office. You heard me. I said, I'm not understanding why I need to get out of your office. Did I say anything to upset you? And he said, it's 8:21. You're on my time now. Get out. I said, Mr. Gee, I really need to understand why you're doing this to me. And he goes, you asked for 20 minutes. I said, that was a figure of speech. I just said, can I have 20 minutes of your time? And he said, you got it. It's 8:21. You're on my time. Get out. And as I was walking out the door, he said, Mr. Imada, the next time you want something, ask for 2 hours. I might not give you 2 hours, but I might. And you would have had that. You asked for 20 minutes, that's what you got, and let that be a lesson to you. So the lesson to all of you is if there's something that you want, ask for it. What are people going to say? No? They're going to say no for a few minutes, but I think no is maybe. So anyways, we looked at all these executives, and you probably don't know these executives by face, but I dropped a few hints for you here and there, and we started off and asked them all, would you meet with the Millennial Community? By the way, the Millennial Community was less than a week old. And the first person we went to was the Chief Marketing Officer of NBC. Now, she focused on the Latino market, but she's a rising star. She went to Cornell. She said yes. And so that was our first conversation. Second conversation, we went to Andy Polanski, the Chief Executive Officer of Weber Shandwick, one of the largest PR firms in the world with 81 offices. He said yes. Then we went to the Executive Vice President of Warner Brothers for worldwide HR. He said yes. And the list went on and on and on. So the moral of the story is if you want something, ask for it. And if you believe in something, you can sell it. And so you probably recognize these brands. These people are from these brands. And not one person has said no to us. They're all saying yes. And not one person is below VP level. And the next conversation is this Friday with the president and CEO of PBS, the 5th most powerful network in the country and one of the 100 most powerful women in entertainment. So that's how the community works. And the community works, by the way, through GoToMeeting. You probably see Brittany there. She's co-hosting the meeting. The students lead the conversation. The faculty and I kind of sit in the background and listen. We're coaches, but they lead the community. And we help out. We have a hashtag just to keep the conversation going. And again, these are the companies that came out. And this is your community. So I think it's very important for you to know that. But I also wanted to just walk you through a few other things because I know I have a little bit more time. And then if there's any questions, I want to answer those things. But I want you guys to also think about changing conventional wisdom. And I talked to Professor Curtis's class earlier about this. But I want you to change the way we have conversations about idioms. Because idioms are said to you to hold you back and to shut you up. So whenever somebody says to you, you should never reinvent the wheel or let's not reinvent the wheel, they're trying to stop you from making a comment. But if you can come up with a better wheel, you should do it. If somebody tells you that you should think outside of the box, hiss. Because you should always think in the box first. Improve yourself, learn whatever you can from the academy here and from the professors and the faculty and from the community here, then step out. And if anybody tells you to walk the walk and talk the talk, walk and shut up and listen. And I learned this all through people that immigrated to America. That immigrated to America because they wanted a piece of the American dream. So very quickly, the Indian person at Golden Gate University said, why do Americans say we should think outside of the box? Why can't they think in the box first? Because he didn't understand where the box was from. We create these boxes for ourselves, and that limits us. The Japanese student said, why do Americans say you shouldn't reinvent the wheel? He came to America for innovation and ideas, because America is the land where dreams happen. And now I tell people, if you could reinvent the wheel, do it. And I was telling the other class earlier that the German and the Taiwanese students said that they were confused by all sorts of idioms, like, why do black people have special shopping days called Black Friday? And was it because of discrimination? And is there Brown Friday for Latinos? And is there Yellow Fridays for Asian? And why do white people and Latinos get to shop on Black Friday? Isn't that a special day only for them? Okay, no. But the best part of it is they said, why do Americans say walk the walk and talk the talk? Why can't they walk and shut up? Why can't they feel, taste, and observe, and get the essence of a room and feel if they're welcome or not, or taste something, even if it's not food? And so now I tell people you should do whatever you can, get a flavor of wherever you are, and that means being curious. And you should always be curious, and you should always be pushing back on the faculty, on the community, and the administration, and be asking tough questions, because this is your time to do that. People outside of the university want people that are going to challenge them. Not people that are going to say yes. Not people that are going to say, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. But people are going to say, I have a better idea to change the way your company works. I have a better idea on how this university should work. I have an idea that's going to revolutionize the way we talk to people online. And I believe I have the answer to do that. I need you to all be able to say that. Because if you leave the university without questioning, without being curious, you're going to be doing a disservice not only to yourselves, but to the university. And you should never do that. You should always remain curious. And part of the thing that really needs to happen is that we need to understand what is happening around the world. How many people live in Canada?
No idea.
That's why Canadians hate us. 36 million Canadians, the same size as the population of California. The president of Brazil is a woman. What is her first name?
I don't know.
It's Dilma, the International Monetary Fund. It impacts our economy. Who leads the International Monetary Fund?
Not too sure.
Christine Lagarde. There are 3 major tribes of Nigeria, one of the most populated countries in Africa. Name any of the 3. Hausa, Yoruba, Igbo. What day is Mexican independence? Don't tell them. What day is Mexican independence? Okay. Why is Cinco de Mayo important to Americans and important to Latinos? Why is Cinco de Mayo important?
I don't know.
Cinco de Mayo is important because the Mexicans defeated the French in the Battle of Puebla. If they hadn't defeated the French in the Battle of Puebla, Mexico would be speaking French. Mexican Independence Day is September 16th. Sibelius is a composer of what country? Finland. You know the answer to that? What does an emu look like? No. I'm kidding. Latin America. What other country in Latin America has a female president? Chile is one, and Argentina at one time had one. We just established diplomatic relations with Cuba. Some people consider him a dictator. Other people consider him a freedom fighter. His brother was Fidel Castro. What is his brother's name? Raul. So what makes this a very important discussion? Oh, we got a Japanese person here. What's the Prime Minister of Japan's name? Not you.
Amo?
Who?
Amo, something Amo.
Amo. Shinzo Abe.
Abe.
It was Abe.
Abe.
The president of Korea is a woman. What's her last name?
Don't know.
Park. Very good. And she was related to a former president. What happened to that former president? He died. He was assassinated. So Russia is fighting a proxy war with the U.S. in the Ukraine. And I think I mentioned this the last time I was here, so if you heard this before, you better know the answer. What did Russia annex from the country of Ukraine? The Crimea. Okay, let's take it a little further. Russia also fought a war with the country of Georgia, not the state. What did they annex from Georgia? Ostencia. So it's important for us to be a little bit more worldly, and that means we have to be curious, because Oregon and all of you are part of the world. And that's why it's very important. By the way, I didn't know the answers to those either, but I was embarrassed when I didn't know those things. So I think it's very important while you're here to be curious. And guess what? You have all those people in the room. You have somebody from Korea, you have somebody from China, you have somebody from Mexico, you have somebody from Canada. Ask them. You have people from Samoa. Ask them. Because you need to be curious about what's going on outside of your dorms and outside of your communities, because that's really important. I think I want to end because it's getting late, and last time I left some quotes, and I want to leave the same quotes, maybe a little different quotes with all of you, because these are quotes that inspire me, and I want them to inspire you as well. Quote number 1, an Italian-American woman starting a retail empire in Pittsburgh when women were marginalized in retail. And her name was Catherine Barchetti. And this is one thing that's very important. We could learn something from every community in America, and that's what makes America great, is that we have that diversity. And this, Catherine Barchetti said, make a customer, not a sale. Make a customer, not a sale. And that's why my little Lexus comment to you earlier was doing just that. I wasn't looking to make a sale. I was looking to find a customer and a partner. So if you do that in your pitch for jobs, or as you move on into the community, you're going to do well. Booker T. Washington, an African-American patriot that started the Tuskegee Institute, he once said, if you want to lift yourself up, lift up someone else. And no matter how depressed or how forlorn we might be, because, we have a lot of issues in our life, and I understand that. And Professor Curtis's office really gave me an idea of all the things that students all over the country go through. But we should always find humanity to help somebody else up, and ultimately that's going to help you as well. And for the person that's running the bee company, if you pay attention to the needs and interests of the customer, and you focus on the needs and interests of the customer is going to reward you not only with loyalty, but with referrals. And the people that you help are always going to remember the people that help them, even if it's a small kindness. Maya Angelou, the poet that passed away, she said, nothing works unless you do. So you got to put a little effort in everything that you do. And sometimes that means waking up a little earlier, pushing yourself to do something new, challenging a colleague to be better, picking up somebody when they failed, and supporting them. And then I really like some other comments. Sam Walton. Sam Walton started a tiny business which became a retail empire, one of my clients. And a lot of people hiss and boo whenever I mention Sam Walton. I speak at a lot of colleges, and every time I mention Walmart, whoo, at least 20% of the room boos and hisses when I'm talking about Walmart. But I have to tell you, I learned something from Walmart. Sam Walton once said, you should swim upstream. You should go against conventional wisdom. You should question things if you have a question. And you shouldn't always follow the path of least resistance. If you have an idea and you believe in that idea, in that principle, you should fight for it. But you should also leave room to share. And I think I left you that other one. Donde comen cinco, comen seis. And we always malign immigrants from Latin America. But I love Latin expressions. That is the most beautiful expression I've ever heard. If you could feed 5, you could feed 6. And that means that there should always be room at your table for an idea, for a meal, and that we should always be generous with everyone that we meet. Because you never know where that person's going to be later on, but it's just an important thing to do. And I think the very last thing that I want to leave you is Peter Drucker, and now Marlo Thomas is saying it. If you want to predict the future, create it. You are all going to create the future, and I'd like to be a part of that journey. Thank you. You don't have to stand up for me. Thank you. Thank you. No problem. Thank you all. I don't know if we have a few moments for questions, but I'd love, you're more than happy. I'm happy to answer a few. Or
Any questions, guys? Great opportunity.
yes.
So there was one time where a guy came and talked to, I was in an RA class actually last year, and it was pretty cool, but one of the things he talked about was being a world citizen, and it's kind of like what you were talking about. We don't really know how to do that. We're from Eastern Oregon, and we don't kind of realize, I think, that we're part of the world, the entire world. So I guess my question for you would be, do you have any other pointers other than the ones you gave us that would be beneficial for us being better world citizens?
First of all is to take some risks and travel. Learn another language. But I would reach out to your colleague from Korea. I'd reach out to your colleague from Japan. I'd reach out to your colleague from Mexico and American Samoa. And I would like to say, I want to learn something unique about your culture. And we were talking about this in Professor Curtis's class. I was actually in a class not too long ago, and there was an older gentleman sitting in the back, Caucasian, and he actually got up and said, a lot of people think I'm racist. And I just want everybody in the room to know that I really care about Latinos. I consume tacos. And I've got the same reaction, and I was like, wow, that's interesting. And a woman in the audience who is Latina on the opposite side of the room stands up and says, Mr. Imada, this is the reason why I do not like that man. He is racist. I don't even eat tacos. And the whole room went dead silent. This is an opportunity for a teachable moment. If somebody says something that you don't agree with, confront them with kindness and offer them something. So if it was me who was that Latina, I would have said, you know what, in my culture, because I'm Nicaraguense or Guatemateco or whatever I am, we don't eat the kind of tacos that you're referring to. But I'd like to invite you to have a meal with me so I can share a little bit of my culture with you. But you have every resource available at the university here. You have a very large international population. Reach out to one of them and say, I want to know something about Korea. I want to know something about Mexico. I want to know something about Canada. I want to know something about the western part of Oregon so you can talk to Justin. But I want to know something. But you could also travel. You have exchange programs. Take advantage of that. Do something that you wouldn't do. And I have to tell you, a University of Florida student wanted to intern with us. She had never left Gainesville, Florida, and she had never been to the state of California. Her dad drove her all the way, and she was homesick for the first 2 weeks. But she stuck it out, and then her mom called me up a few weeks later after she came back and said, I don't know what she did with my daughter, but her confidence level has completely shot up. She now wants to travel everywhere. She's very curious about what's out there, and so you got to always push yourself. What more can I learn, and what more can I gain? And once you say those things and you reach out to the people that are here, including all the people that have traveled, it's going to make you a lot more worldly person. But I have to tell you, Oregon is part of the world. You have stories that the rest of the world would love to hear. Nature, sustainability, small town living, a university where you can talk to your professors and have lunch with them. I mean, who has that? You have all of that here. You have the world in your hands. Take advantage of that and then step out. So I always say, think in the box first. The box is here. Take advantage of whatever is here, then step out and share it with the rest of the world.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, the digital guy. I know you want to work in the digital space.
So, I'm sure everyone in this room has gone through like a moment where they kind of think, this is what I want to do, and then they think to themselves, what if I can't? What do you do when you think to yourself, what if I can't?
Justin wanted me to tell you all this. I'm introverted. I don't like to public speak. I have moments of crises when I talk to people. And every day when I'm asked to speak, and today was really hard for me because there was one after another. Usually when I am asked to speak, I work on my speech for 3-4 hours, and I psych myself completely out. And then I deliver my speech, and then you know what I do? I run to the hotel and I hide. Because I'm afraid to speak in public. So the answer to your question is you have to take a risk, and I'm sure you hear that all the time because it's not easy to take a risk, I understand that, but you can take simple steps. I was saying in Professor Curtis's class that you don't have to get from point A to point B tomorrow. You can get from point A to point B in 10 steps. That is okay. It took me 8 years to graduate, but I finally graduated. So if you cannot take a big leap, take a small step. If you have to step back, step back. Set simple, easy, attainable goals, but always keep your eye on point B. Once you get to A1 and succeed, set 2 more goals, A2, A3. You fail on A4, stop. Think in the box, then go to point A4. And set your goal and sights on 3 more steps to point B, and you're going to get there. So when you have a moment of self-doubt, I always think 95% of the world don't have what I have. So I have self-pity for about 2 minutes, cry, run to my room, take a shower, go mountain biking, fall down, and cut my hand, and then I regroup. Because you have the world at your hands, in your fingertips here, but you just need to open your eyes and see it's all around you. You've got a support group of people. You've got friends. You've got professors. You've got faculty. You've got a university. Take advantage of that. You've got me now. So I'm going to help you find those steps because, and then, but after you take those steps, you're going to have 2 other people you're going to be pulling along with you, right? So that you have a little squad, because I love my squad. So that's what you got to do. Take the baby steps. You're eventually going to get to point B, and then you're going to have the confidence. But sometimes you're going to fall on your face. But the worst thing that can happen is that you are disabled from grief or stress or worry. If you fail, you're going to worry and you're going to stress out. And when I failed, it was awful. I hid for 3 months. I didn't do anything. I said, I'm a failure. I'm never going to run a business again. Friend pulled me up and said, snap out of it. What is wrong with you? The amount of energy you spend on failure and fear could be channeled to something positive. And I didn't think about that. So I actually said, you're right. The energy I put in fear could easily be turned into something that I can do that's positive. So if you can turn that switch on and off, and you're going to learn how to do this, it's going to fuel you. So fear is going to fuel you in a way. And that now fuels me. So now when I think about giving a public speech, I run and hide for a moment, and then I, well, wait a minute. I'm going to do my best to try to inspire some people here, and I'm going to do whatever I can to do that. And I set a goal for myself. And once I get that goal, then I feel more confident about doing others. So I know that you're coming from a place where you don't feel confident, but you should. And the only way you're going to learn is if you take a step forward and say, I'm going to do this, and I set a goal, and I'm going to do it. And if it takes you 2 days or 2 weeks, you still got to take the step. But once you take the step, you don't look back until you succeed, and then you go back and you pull somebody else with you. And if there's somebody in front of you, you give them a kick and push them forward. And believe me, it works. I want you to know that every one of those executives that you saw on the screen, Kevin was having a debate with one of the executives. Are they real people?
Absolutely.
Do they have the same interests and fears that everybody else have?
Yes.
Do they have the same doubts and concerns or questions? Absolutely. They're people. You have an intersection with every single person in the room, and you probably don't know that, but you do. And I had the University of Washington student, one student said the same exact thing to me. Bill, I don't have any contacts. I have no idea how to get anywhere. And I said, come on. It's 1 degree of separation. And they said, well, can you meet Bill Gates? And I said, you're on. I had a 35 meeting with Bill Gates about 4.5 weeks later. So I want to challenge all of you, including you, Mr. Digital, to pick a person. And Brittany said, Taylor Swift. You in this room will be able to connect, and I say this on the camera, in 4 calls. You may not use LinkedIn. You may not use your websites. You can use a mobile device, but not to do research. But in 4 tries, with just the people in the university, you will connect with Taylor Swift. You just have to believe that you can do it. I believe you can do it in 4 tries. And if you believe that we were able to meet those executives with an organization that has no bylaws, no officers, and is less than 2 months old, then you should believe that you could meet anybody you want to meet in the world. So I want to challenge all of you in this room to pick one person, and as a community and university, make a resolve to meet that person and have a conversation with them. You will be shocked at how much power you have, because I guarantee that it will not be hard to connect with Taylor Swift with this community. I don't care if you're in Eastern Oregon. You're all connected in some way. Find the intersection that connects you to another person that knows another person. So we were talking about Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett, I believe, is in Kansas. Anybody have a relative in Kansas?
I have a friend who has a relative in Kansas.
There you go. And then what does Warren Buffett do?
I've interviewed him.
Well, there you go. It's less than, so I'm telling you, you already have 2 places that have leads, 3 places that have leads. Somebody that interviewed him, somebody that knows somebody in Kansas, and a relative in Kansas. You're already more than halfway there. All you have to do is talk to a relative and say, okay, Warren Buffett's in this business. Do you know anybody in that business in Kansas? Well, a relative was involved in real estate and once met him at a dinner. Call that relative who's in that business. And do you know somebody within his inner circle or somebody that influences him? Absolutely. In fact, his wife gets her hair done at the same salon as I do. Boom, you made a connection. Same with Bill Gates. I just had to make 1 phone call to one person who is friends with Bill Gates, and she said one question to me: will you donate to his charity? And I said, absolutely. Donated to charity, got the meeting. It was a quickest 35 minutes I ever had because the man did not stop talking like me. So anyway, any other questions? Oh, more? No, I'm kidding.
What were your mom and dad like as a child?
My mom and dad, I showed this spot in Professor Curtis's office. My mom and dad are typical Japanese American families. I was born here, they were born here. They never ever said they loved me, and I never ever said I loved them, but they would show their love in different ways. They would make my favorite meals, they would, make my bed or buy a, really nice jacket for me, and that's how they would show their love. They worked very, very hard, 80, 90 hours a week farming in a very difficult part of Oregon, growing potatoes on 80 acres. And they made a really good life for us. I mean, we never missed out on anything. And they finally said, we probably need to give you a different experience, and we're going to move to California. And my brothers and sisters went kicking and screaming. I was too young, but I went. But then they did whatever they could to make sure that we had a happy life. And in my dad's final days, he said, don't forget Oregon. Do not forget Oregon. And that's part of the reason why I'm here. Because my parents loved Oregon so much, especially Eastern Oregon and Western Idaho. And so that's why I keep coming back. And so you gotta take care of your parents and your caregivers and your grandparents or whoever is raising you. And just remember that whatever they do, they're doing it to sacrifice for you, and you should do whatever you can to repay them in the best way possible. So are you going to find Taylor Swift? I will sweeten the pot. I will sweeten the pot. If you pick a person, and tell me who the person is, maybe not Taylor Swift, but if you want to do Taylor Swift, that's okay. But I challenge you to pick a business person. If you do that, I will donate $1,000 to the 4 people that make that connection. Because you got to do something, and you got to put some stakes behind it. And if you're not willing to put some stakes behind it, then it's meaningless. So I'm going to make an offer to you. You make that connection, and then you tell me when you make that connection. And then we'll have a deal here. So. Now, I want somebody important. I don't want you to say, oh, we're going to meet the governor of Oregon. You can get the governor of Oregon to come out. Well, maybe not. Sorry, I didn't say that. Somebody that you don't think you'd ever get to talk to. And remember what I said. Don't be afraid to ask for what you want. Because if you don't ask, you're never going to get. So I want you to tell Sherry and Justin in the next few days who you are going to get. And I want the university to come together, and you could include the community, and you are going to put your heads together. And if it doesn't take you 4 steps, fine, 8 steps. But you're going to find that person, and you're going to talk to that person. And if you have that conversation, then we've got a deal. But you've got to challenge yourself and believe that you can do it, because you can. Do the Millennial Community folks, do you believe that you can get what you want if you ask for it?
Absolutely.
All right.
That's why we're going to see you on The Bachelor, right? Bill,
Thank you. Thank you all.